Welcome to Living Your Greatness. Each episode, we bring on great people to inspire you to achieve your greatness. We discuss topics all related to health and wellness. Listen to world-class stories, learn valuable lessons, and turn knowledge into action. It is now time for you to unlock your inner greatness. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Living Your Greatness. This is your host, Ben Mummy, and today we have a new guest to the show, and her name is Brittany Kennell. So for those of you who don't know Brittany, she is a Canadian country singer. Brittany packed her bags over 10 years ago to complete her studies at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and then spent 8 years in the writing streets of Nashville. Brittany became the first and only Canadian to be on NBC The Voice when country superstar Blake Shelton encouraged her to perform Sheryl Crow's song called Strong Enough. She made it to the knockout round singing Shania Twain's You're Still the One with Miley Cyrus as her mentor. While in Nashville, Brittany has written and played with some of the Music City's finest, Maren Morris, Pearce, Jillian Jacqueline, the Reklaws, and many others. Brittany has sung for the Montreal Canadiens, Prix F1, and the Montreal Impacts. She has recently launched a new album called I Ain't a Saint. So Brittany, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's kind of get kicking here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up in Canada? What inspired you to become a country artist?
Good questions. I'm a 32-year-old country singer living in downtown Montreal. Like you said in the intro, lived in Nashville. I lived in the States for many years pursuing country music. But growing up, I lived in the West Island of Montreal. And I lived there until I was 18, and that's when I left home to pursue music. And at the time, I can't really say that I was like so determined on country music. I was kind of really like taking it one step at a time. I knew I loved music. I knew I loved writing music, and that love for writing is kind of what pulled me to Berklee College of Music, because they had a songwriting program. And so that's kind of where I really discovered, and not discovered country music because I'd grown up listening to country music, but it was kind of where I guess I planted that seed for country music.
So what doors has your singing career opened for you ever since you've started singing?
Well, I would say it's given me probably just some of my best adventures. My parents were very much about do what you love. And I knew I loved music. So I think following that passion and that love for music has just opened, so many doors as far as big opportunities like The Voice, and even just meeting some of the coolest people and meeting, and making great friendships, and just getting to see different parts of the world that I probably wouldn't have seen otherwise, or just every little bit on the scale, from the smallest to the biggest things. Like music has totally carved kind of my path in life. Absolutely. No, for sure. And so how would you describe the music that you typically create? What is it like when you're working on the creative process? It changes. I think whether I'm writing or working alone, or whether I'm working with other people and other musicians. But a lot of the time, I guess what I really stick to is making my music about experience, and making sure that I have some sort of personal relation to those experiences. So, trying to share my story in hopes that others can relate to it. And also, really trying to be creative with my songs. I really love what we call in songwriting a lot of furniture in the song. So having a lot of colorful lyrics, making listeners go to a time and place, envision, a room that we're in, a time period, a feeling. So I'm really, hyper aware of each line as real estate, and making sure that it's offering as much to the listener, and that it's cohesive, and that it's, bringing something to the listener, whether that's lyrically or melodically. So I would say I lean more towards the crafting of songwriting, and occasionally with that practice, you get those songs that come out within, an hour or two. There's always those songs that just kind of flow out of you. But then there's some that take, time and effort. So yeah, I would say that's kind of my process, and the process too of just like, I don't know, collecting ideas, collecting experiences, and then turning those into songs. Whether they're upbeat songs or slower songs, or what's the mood, what's the sound. And so, yeah, for me, there's a lot more thinking about songwriting than just like writing whatever comes out. But those songs do happen as well, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And you know what? It makes me kind of think here, just based off what you said, is really having that experimental process, right? Kind of like you said, some songs will come more naturally than others. But the more you kind of experiment and try different things, okay, what does this sound like here when then I combine with this, with these lyrics and this and that? So it's really interesting to hear that, just because, people are always wondering, right? Like, do people just, strictly follow, the plan here and produce something, or do they experiment a little bit too? So thanks for sharing that. And something that you had mentioned about, painting that process or giving that picture, giving that feeling, right, of life experiences. Music can lift our moods. It could, combat depression and lower levels of stress-related hormones. So how has your relationship with music had an impact on you as well as your listeners? Yeah,
music is incredibly powerful in that sense. It can do wonders. I mean, you see videos of older people that are suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, and you play a song for them and it brings them completely back. I mean, it's so powerful, and it's such a unifying language. I just think it connects everybody. So that's definitely something, for sure I keep in mind as far as like writing goes, and making sure that I'm connecting, my music in the easiest way possible that I can relate and hopefully help somebody or move somebody or make them happy, or because I know it does that for me. Like if I'm having a rough day, like I know what music I need to listen to kind of get me out of it. If I'm getting pumped up for a show, I know what songs to kind of put on to get me in that space. I don't know what a world would be like without music. I mean, I wake up and it's the first thing I do is put on, a morning playlist or a morning album that I, want to listen to. And so I think again, like I'm very conscious of that when creating music and when performing music, knowing that like this moment or this song could change, somebody, or could help them, have a better day or understand the situation that they're going through, or not make them feel so alone. And to me, that's, the most important reason to do music. As much as I love it, like I think it's important to always remember why I'm doing music. And that's, that's one of the biggest reasons, to make sure that it's connecting people.
As you kind of know, I teach phys ed at a CGEP level, and in a lot of my classes, especially when we're indoors, because I do a lot of outdoor ed as well, but whenever we're indoors, music's in all my classes. It's crazy to see the impact it has just on the vibe of the room, like the effort of all my students. And most importantly, even when a song comes on that they like, seeing them lip sing, and it's beautiful, right? And I think everyone listening right now could all relate to that in a certain way, right? Depending on their mood and their feelings, they have certain music that they like to listen to. So that's awesome. So moving to my next question, every successful country artist has experienced failure. So what's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, I love this question. I think I feel like there's a lot of definitions of failure, in the sense of like, well, I didn't get this or I didn't get that. And like, to me, that's not what creates that growth. Like, I think those are more materialistic failures of like, this didn't work out or that didn't work out or whatever. But looking back, I think what I would call my failure, and like, I don't even want to say failure, but like more of just like that hard-hitting learning experience, would be that I think that when I lived in Nashville, I spent so much time so focused and hustling, and all with the best intention, but like just trying so hard to make something work, as far as just trying to get a deal or trying to get a writing session, or just working almost too much and not realizing that like sometimes life requires you to take a step back and just let things be and to enjoy life and to enjoy the journey. And I enjoyed the journey, but I think I could have enjoyed it more, and I could have been a little bit more not so hard on myself to like achieve certain things, because wins are great and all, but really it is about the in between that matters the most.
Absolutely. And I like how you framed it, doesn't have to be thought of as a failure, but in another way, kind of even how I look at things, it's just a roadblock or a challenge, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And all those roadblocks is what makes us better, right? So you definitely nailed some good points there. What do you believe is the greatest challenge most country artists are facing today?
It's a good question. I would say I'd say there's two sides to this coin, or two answers, not two sides, two answers to this question. The first one being for women in country, I think there's still quite a big challenge as far as getting on the radio. It's still something that is, you just don't see a lot of women on radio charts. I would say there's maybe 2 in top 50, and it happens quite a lot, where a lot of great women writers and songwriters and artists are putting out great music and it's just not getting radio play. And I would say maybe on the creative side, I think what we're running into, or what I'm seeing a little bit, is like, how to really be your own artist, because I think maybe there are some, feelings of like, well, this has to fit for radio if I want to get it on radio, or so maybe there's some challenges there, I think, with creativity and sonically and towing that line of making music that everybody can connect with and relate to, but also, making art a little different, or a little bit more imaginative and a little bit more creative. And so I would say maybe that's a challenge, and that we all face as artists, and trying to figure out that lane that we're supposed to be in.
Yeah. And you know what? And it's hard too, just because they always say, right, how do you stand out from the whole crowd, right? How do you be unique? How do you find that unique style for you that works for you to kind of grab people's attention? But it's hard too, especially with all the content that's going out there. Kind
so
of
much
saying, right?
It's hard. There's so much great content. I think that's what makes it hard too, is like you see artists and you're like, oh my gosh, they're amazing, I want to do that. And that's a challenge for myself, seeing it's like, well, no, that's their path, that's their style. I need to do me. I can respect it and listen to it and enjoy it, but I don't have to do it. It already exists. So I think that's a challenge too for artists, is like to just keeping blinders on and focusing on your own message.
Absolutely. So based on all of this, you have written and played with many country artists, some that stand out more than others. Which country artist do you admire the most, and why?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I say that there's like my 3 women in country music right now, in current country music, which is Miranda Lambert, Maren Morris, and Kacey Musgraves. And I think because they're just very empowered women, and they have created their own paths musically, sonically. They haven't, they've kind of broken some barriers as far as, for example, with Kacey Musgraves not getting radio play, but being a country album of the year at the Grammys. And so, kind of, breaking down barriers, creating, music that's different, standing up for important rights. Like they've really just, they've created some really amazing career paths that I admire.
Wow, that's awesome. So what do you believe separates a good country artist from a great country artist? Because there is a difference between the two.
That's a good question. And it's tough because everybody's so great in their own way. Like I don't know. I just think there's a song for everything. There's, I think if a song is changing somebody's life and it's helping them, or it's making their day better, then that job is done. Like that artist has done a great job. But I think, seeing the ones that stand out, like somebody like Dolly Parton, Again, somebody like Casey Musgraves, like I think there's something that it's not just like, I don't know, it's the message within the music, but I think it's also how they carry themselves outside the music and the actions that they do, the responsibilities that they take on with their power. I think I feel like it's a superhero quote of like, with responsibility or with power comes great responsibility. And I think that's true in the sense that like if you work your way up to a position where you have kind of a bigger voice and you use it responsibly and you stay grounded, I think that's kind of, for me, what makes an artist great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think even with groundedness, it makes them be their best selves, not only in their music, but in all areas of kind of their character, right? And
Exactly.
and that always stands out, right? Like you always know, for example, every time I've seen Eric Church play, he stands out where he comes out 3-4 more times, because he loves to play music. He loves probably celebration. He loves community, these values that are important to him, right? So I definitely agree with you there. I definitely think it's aspects like that makes
it's the character. Yeah, it's them being a good person all around, and to me that's what makes the difference. And I think about artists that I look up to, and I love their music, but I think I love their music more because of who they are. I think that's true with anything. It's like, if you find out, for example, if you're a big fan of an artist and you find out that they do something that's just like doesn't line up with your values, and I don't mean in any sort of like political sense. I just mean in like being a good person, for me, it's a bit of a turn off. But if I know that they're like just a good person in a lot of ways, and I feel like I respect them more for that.
Absolutely. And so I kind of want to transition to a different topic here, something really exciting. I mentioned it actually in the bio before, but you have recently launched a new album called I Am a Saint. I have listened to a couple of the songs and the lyrics are truly powerful. What was your why for creating this album?
Yeah. It wasn't super intentional. It kind of started off with a single, then it was going to be an EP. And then, during pandemic, I just had a lot more time to kind of be in studio or recording, at least in that process, and writing. And it kind of turned into an album. And, I went through a pretty big breakup, which had led me to move home to Montreal. And I took a step back from music. I spent just a year doing other things. And this album kind of came at a place when I was past that like hard part of a breakup. And I was kind of more in the like happier part of a breakup, of seeing, the changes that it brought and the positivity that it brought to my life. And I really just wanted to write a happy breakup song for people to relate to, that there is a positive and there is a light at the end of the tunnel through hard times. So that was kind of my why. I just felt like I personally couldn't listen to any breakup songs when I was going through my breakup. I just didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to, not that I didn't want to face it. It didn't help. And so for me, I think my why was like, I want to create positive, happy breakup songs to show people that it's okay to move on and it's okay to find new happiness. I wanted to kind of create that lane for people.
That's awesome. And first of all, I just want to, congratulate you for that, just because that is pretty exciting to do. And it took a lot of also courage too, sharing a bit of your story as well as experience, but also kind of celebrating, like you said, right? Showing the positive side of it. Because truly in every relationship, we could always learn something, especially when it's, a partner or a significant other. And there's a lot that you learn about not only that relationship, but also moving forward, what you want, in terms of like the new partner that you want to have in your life, right? You kind of shape better of that dream partner that you want to have in your life.
Right.
So that's awesome. That's great. And so you kind of mentioned, right, your latest album talks about, the bright side, experiencing breakups. What was the main message though that you were trying to highlight to your fans?
I think the main message was that, for one, that it's okay to move on, and two, that your happiness matters. And sometimes that means making a pretty big change in your life. And it's not easy to do. It's hard. It doesn't happen overnight. It could take time. But that, in the end, it's going to be okay. And it's okay if you have to make those hard decisions. And, this album isn't about like, well, I don't believe in love and forget about love and just like move on, whatever. It's not about that at all. It's more about like, looking at your life and looking at, how you want to live your life. And are you happy? And are you happy with your decisions? And if you need to make a change, it's okay. And it all works out in the end. And not to mention that kind of, the umbrella to all that is really about being honest. It's about being honest with your feelings, about being honest with yourself. It's about being honest with others, and in a no hard feelings kind of way. It's just being straight and being forthright with, and most importantly, yourself and how you want to live your life. And yeah, stepping up to the plate and living that life to its fullest.
Absolutely. And I think something just to add too is when you're in that process of healing or even trying growing or kind of moving on, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But the more you keep focusing on yourself, putting yourself first, because lots of times in breakups, people kind of neglect themselves, right? They think about what they had, which is beautiful that they had that, but they forget about the process of what they have to do to feel better about themselves again and go back to how they've always felt, before having that moment of disappointment, right? Of a lost one, right? Yeah. So it's really that growth process that kind of like you said, there's different phases. And when you're getting to that phase of seeing the positivity of everything that brought you and everything that's helping you now become, a different version or a better version of yourself, that's where it gets truly beautiful. So that's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I think we just, we all need that motivation to move forward in our lives and, obviously be grateful for where we are and what we have and whatnot, but just to have some sort of inspiration to move on and move forward. So that we live happily each day, or as happy as we can each day.
So what do you think? You've written many different albums now, many different songs. You've been in different places, different concert venues where you've been performing. What do you feel is the best song you've ever released and why?
Ooh, best song I've ever released. Gosh, that's a tough one. I want to say something off of my latest album. I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to say, I want to say, gosh, there's a few that I really like. And it's funny because I feel like artists, like we go through phases where we're like, we like it and then we don't like it and then we like it again. Gosh, I want to say, I feel like I Ain't a Saint, possibly. And I say that only because I just love that I was really able to dig into being honest with myself in that song, and have fun while doing it. And so I had a great time writing that with Nathan Meckel. We had, he just kind of, he's a friend of mine in Nashville, and we wrote it over Zoom. And I think it just kind of alludes a lot of just honesty, and, it allows people to relate, I feel like, in a lot of ways. Just kind of towards the bridge, it talks about, we're all just trying our best each day. It's all we can do. We're not perfect, and let's just have a good time, kind of thing. And so I really love performing that one live. I love the lyrics of it, and I would say recently that's my most recent song that I'm probably pretty proud of.
All right, so if everyone heard that, that's one definitely to check out. So what has been one important lesson you've learned from your time as a country artist?
I think this kind of goes with your question about the failure question, because for me, I think coming back to Montreal, it really allowed me to find a balance between, pursuing my career and loving it, but also living life and enjoying family moments and friend moments and, just simple simple life moments, watching a sunset, sitting by a fire, like really having a good balance between when to work and when to not work. And so I think that was an important lesson for me to learn, only because I feel like once I stepped back and was able to live a more balanced life, music had, I found it gave more, just more depth and weight to music. It gave it more quality, and rather than kind of burning the candle at both ends, and, sometimes stepping back and saying no and just letting things play out works a lot better in the long run. So I feel like that was probably one of the best lessons I learned.
That's a key point there, learning when to have fun, right? And also knowing when to work, and having that whole life work balance, right? So yeah. Super important. And kind of the last thing that you said there is, prioritizing like your own needs too, right? So knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes. So then you could keep being the best version of yourself. So moving to my next question, as you know, the whole purpose of this podcast is to inspire people to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. So what is your definition of greatness?
I would say being your most honest and truest self. I don't know. I'm sure there's some misconstrued ideas of like, well, greatness means reaching a certain level of your career. Greatness means a certain amount of money in your bank account. Greatness means, and I don't believe it's any of that. I think greatness is really just being your truest self and how you impact others positively. I think that's living you don't have to be, the next superstar. You don't have to be the top athlete. I think you could be a person behind the cashier and you're your truest self. You're happy. You're, greeting customers with the biggest smile. I mean, that's greatness. Like, I think just, living honestly, happily, and, just with the love for others and treating others properly. I think that's true greatness. I think
that's beautiful. That's a nice definition. I had another guest that actually said something similar, and he was kind of saying, greatness could be even as a father. It could be as even a teacher. And reaching that incredible level where you don't just know how to educate, about a certain topic, but just knowing how to properly positive reinforce all those aspects, right? There's so much behind a teacher. And then he had even mentioned, even a baker, right? It's an art and creativity and the taste and the flavor. Yeah. So absolutely, I think you nailed that. It's not just the result or the level or the standout or the fame or any of that stuff. It's the whole process of kind of what makes, I guess, that role that you're playing so great.
And doing what you love and like sharing that with others and having that, having that connection and impacting people positively to, just so that, I don't know, spreading happiness, I guess, and spreading happiness and love, I would say, is greatness.
Amazing. So who is a future guest that you would like to see on this show?
I'm going to nominate my little sister. I don't know if it was a nomination, but I would like to see her. I think she's just so great at what she does. She's a photographer in the West Island area and Montreal area, mainly doing weddings. But she's done engagements and baby shoots. She does all my artwork. And I would say her just because she is, the epitome of somebody who's living their greatness. She loves what she does. She's so good at what she does. And she really, like, anybody that works with her knows that, like, she puts a smile on everybody's faces. She's so great to work with, and she works hard. And I would say my little sister, Lindsey Kennell, she's great.
Awesome. Well, I would love to have Lindsey on the show, and
I do know her. So
honestly, I truly admire her work, just because, kind of like you said, it's not even just the moments, but even just the art too, how she edits them and everything. It's a very unique style. So that's awesome. I would love to have her on. That'd be fun.
Yeah, she's great. And she's so good at connecting with people. Like, she really, again, like, she's just, I don't know, she just has a really great aura about her all the time. So she's great to work with. And she's just I would say, epitome of living her greatness for sure.
Amazing. So where could our listeners go to connect with you online? Where's the best spot?
I would say I spend most of my time on Instagram. I would say that's, where you can connect with me, at Brittany Music. I'm on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all that stuff. Twitter, if you want hockey updates, that's where I do most of that. And a few, trying out TikTok here and there. But pretty much most all the platforms.
Okay, awesome. Great. I will make sure, kind of like I said before, to drop all those links so people know where to go to connect with you or listen to your music. And I want to just take the moment here to thank you for your time, Brittany. Thank you for being here. From every conversation, there's always at least one thing that people can learn. So I know both myself as well as probably my listeners are really appreciative of your time.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me. I love this topic, and I just, I think it's just great to connect with you and get to chat about it.
Thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added value, please subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.